All right, you know what's better than a three-part sales conversation? Shooting a whole video about a three-part sales conversation and forgetting to turn your microphone on. So this time I'm gonna try it a different way, but we put an umbrella above because I was dying in the sun. So this is even better, and we've got a downloadable guide for you. You can click the link below and get that. Now we're building strategies, systems, sales, especially small business. So if that's something that is your jam, make sure you subscribe, hit notification. We're gonna be pushing a lot of this content out for free so you can go and make your life easier, go sell, have fun, and get in the sun. How about that? So let's get started. Okay, the key to all of this is building systems in everything you do, especially in your sales conversations. I do coaching with salespeople all over the world, every kind of industry you can think of, and even when I do it myself, the number one thing that I hear is they say everybody's different. Every conversation is different. Yes, however, with a framework, with a strategy, you can simplify your selling so you can create repeatable best practices. And anything that you can repeat, you can track, you can measure, and you can improve. And so following this framework is a really simple way. This is something you're gonna learn really quickly so you can apply these skills. So we've been talking about spin selling in some of our other videos, and spin selling is all about questions. Now I'm gonna show you how to apply those questions into your conversation framework. So before we get started, I'm gonna give you a bit of a backstory so you understand the psychology of asking great questions. Years ago, I learned about a thing called the Love Lab in the University of Washington. And what they did is they studied what made successful relationships. And what they found is that relationships do these things called bids, B-I-D-S. And in a relationship, it might be, hey, check out what the dog is doing. I read this interesting article. I'm thinking about switching internet providers or yoga studios, whatever it is. It's something that we're doing as little outreaches in our relationship to get the attention of our partner. And what they found is that successful relationships, on average, responded to their partner's bids around 80%. And the ones that ended up in divorce or just struggled responded to their partner's bids around 15% or maybe lower. And what I want you to think about is, how does this apply in the sales conversation? I'll give you an example because, you know, my wife, she always sends me these great articles on how to be a better listener because she knows how much I need them as a sales coach, I think, right? So one of the examples is the man and the woman are out looking out over their back patio, and the woman says to the man, "Look at how beautiful those trees are." And so when I talk about this in workshops and speaking on stage, this always gets a laugh from the audience because I say, what's a typical response that you get from the man? And everybody knows that answer. It's uh-huh, or what, or no baby, you're so beautiful. So what should he say? Well, here's the answer, and I want you to think about the language of this answer. Is when she says, look at how beautiful those trees are, the best way to respond is, what about those trees do you find beautiful? Now you can do it in different ways, but what we're trying to do is take what they said, show we're paying attention, and bring it back. And I want you to remember that. What about those trees do you find beautiful? And what we're doing is we're showing that we want to engage in a dialogue. We understand your bid, we've taken that bid, and we're tending to your story. And it could be as simple as just saying that. Now I want you to apply that in the sales conversation, okay? Is when a customer says, you know, we're just really nervous about making any of those changes. What about these changes are making you nervous, right? Or we have tried that before and it didn't work. Well, tell me about how, when you've tried that before, what didn't work? You see, this is what is the foundation, the backbone of good relationships, and sales is all about relationships. So this is going to be the backbone of this three-part sales conversation. So let's get going. All right, so first thing we're going to do in a three-part sales conversation is we're going to ask level 1 questions. All right, so the first thing we're going to do in a sales conversation, we're going to ask level 1 questions. Okay, so those level 1 questions are really just to help us uncover stuff. When we think about the spin selling, these are situation, maybe problem questions. Tell me about how you're doing lead generation. Tell me about who's on your team, who's going to be involved, blah, blah, blah. Any kind of questions that just get people talking. And what we're doing is we're listening for them to say something about the trees, something about their business, something about what they're dealing with. The mistake that salespeople make is they try and go too wide with their questions and try and get a sense of everything all at once. And that's what they think qualification is. Qualification is a deeper understanding of your customer and helping them cognitively reframe what it is they're really challenged with. So once we've asked a level 1 question, we're looking for something so that we can then ask that level 2 question. And the level 2 question is, what about the trees? I don't know if that's what, I've never written that down, but what about the trees do you find beautiful? So we're listening for something that they say in this conversation and saying, what about those trees do you find beautiful? So they're going to tell you, well, this is how I've done this and this is how we're doing that. Oh, okay, let me ask you, how does that work? Or where does that go? And this is all about bringing in those implication questions from spin selling, okay? And this is really, really important so that we've now got level 1, level 2, we're deepening our relationship. This is building trust, building rapport, building permission to move forward, because once we have a pretty good understanding of what's happening, then we're gonna do celebrate. We're going to celebrate the conversation. We're going to say, okay, well, it sounds like you got this going on and this going on. You guys are doing some really cool stuff. It looks like this, looks like this. You want to still make them feel like what they're doing is right and that they can still be the hero. You're not rescuing people from the abyss. People don't want to be told they're not doing it right. That's why this whole idea of focusing on the pain is really tough, because a lot of people do it wrong. Instead, celebrate what's happening. It sounds like you guys are doing some really cool stuff, and I think there's some really cool stuff we can do on top of that. And then we're going to bridge the conversation to you. Okay? And so basically we're saying, it sounds like you guys are doing some really cool stuff and we could do some even more cool stuff. Can I get some permission, or does it make sense for us to show you what we can do? And they're going to say, yeah, okay, cool. And that's where we then bring in our power statements. Let's just have that fall off here. And that can be your value propositions, whatever you want to say, but your insights, your unique value proposition, your pitch, whatever you want to do. I don't really care what you do here. It's more important what you do here. This is the whole conversation in sales, is how well you take what somebody's told you, tend to that story, and help move that forward. Does that make sense? Okay. So we're going to ask these level 1 questions. We're going to ask level 2, what about those trees you find beautiful? Tend to that story. Celebrate what they've said. Bridge, does it make sense for us to talk? I've got some ideas I want to share with you. Can we talk about my offer, because I think I can help you? And it's important how we ask this with an exclamation mark. I know we should be doing something, so let's move that forward. And then we're getting to the end where we do our power statement. Here's why this makes sense. If you start here and you say, tell me about what's going on in your business, tell me about this. Or let's say my wife comes home and says, I've had a tough day. And I say, don't worry, here's what we're gonna do about it. When we do that, how well does that work? Not very well. And this is the mistake that salespeople make, is they rush to solve the problems of their customer. By asking the questions, by bridging that question, by celebrating what they're saying, making sure we're asking questions to clarify what they're saying, we're deepening our relationship, building trust, we're collaborating on what the actual problem is so that we can get permission to solve that problem. If you don't fully understand their problem, and often your customers don't fully understand their problem, you're not gonna be able to move them forward to your solution. And I'll give you a perfect example. I had a client and she came to me, she was one of my Academy members, and she wanted to do something about building some standards of practice for her team. And so when she came to me, we talked about, well, what does that mean? What are you looking to do? And she said, well, I want to build some kind of a sales playbook where I can build repeatable processes they can follow. So I could jump to here and say, great, I know how to do that. We could build that. Here's how much it costs and here's what we should do. But instead, we want to ask a question here. What do you currently have in place that they're following? See how she wanted to get them to follow a process. I want to know, well, what do you currently do? What is that current process you follow so that we can better understand? She said, well, we don't really have anything set up. So I said, okay, well, what do they currently follow? How do they all figure out to repeat the best practice? Well, they don't. Everybody operates independently, and that's why I want to solve this. And the next question that comes to my mind is to say, well, how much do they follow the stuff that you send them when you do send them? Well, they don't really follow that because everybody's got their own opinions. So the challenge is not, should we build some more stuff for them to follow that we can make them do this work in a sales playbook? Our problem is really about getting the team to want to do more, to be able to improve. So we ended up building a whole different program instead of a sales playbook. And what we ended up focusing on was building resources and tools for the sales team to actually give them less to do and not add more to their plate. So they started to feel like, hey, this is really cool. Well, what else can we do? What else can we do? They started to integrate more into their Salesforce, into their CRM, and they wanted to be a part of the process once we started doing more of that. So you can see how powerful that can be in your sales conversation. So I hope this helps. Now, we've got this guy here. There's a download below that you can click on. You can go, there's some language, and we're constantly updating these. So if you have something that you want us to add to this, or you have questions on this, please let us know. And what I would love for you to do is, comment below. If you're going to apply this, where are you going to apply it? Or even better, which is my favorite, you've applied it and now you're going to share with us how it worked or even how it didn't work, and some of those horror stories. Everybody loves to hear those. So I hope that is a good example for you today. Make sure you subscribe and get those notifications. We're going to be doing a lot more stuff like this. So talk to you next time.